If you got to the end of last week and couldn't really say where it went, you already know the problem isn't that you need to try harder. You've tried harder. It doesn't touch this. The days go by feeling full, and then they're just gone, and trying harder was never the thing that was missing. So here's something that actually works, and it's a little strange. 100 years ago, the Soviets had a version of this exact problem, except theirs was a whole country that had just torn itself apart and couldn't afford to lose a single day. The man who set out to fix it didn't hand anyone a motivational speech. He handed people a card, a pen, and one small instruction. And the method he built to stop a country from wasting itself turns out to work just as well on a single life, quietly slipping past, starting tomorrow. There's one step in the middle where nearly everyone flinches and looks away, and that flinch is the whole reason the year keeps disappearing on you. I'll walk you through the full method, and when we get to that step, I'll point it out so you can catch yourself doing it. The man behind it was Platon Karakoyzentsev, a Bolshevik organizer and journalist who in 1923 started a movement built around a single stubborn question. Why do people who fully intend to use their time end up letting it slip away instead? He'd noticed something most of us spend a lifetime avoiding. People don't waste their lives in big, obvious chunks. Nobody sits down and decides to throw away a year. It goes in a way you can't feel while it's happening. 20 minutes here, an hour there. An evening that was supposed to be for one thing and quietly became nothing. And because no single piece is ever big enough to alarm you, the whole thing slips by underneath your notice. You feel busy the entire time, you feel like you're living, and then a year is gone and you couldn't tell anyone where it went. Karakoyzentsev's fix wasn't to lecture anyone about discipline, because he thought that was useless. His fix was the card. You made the time visible as it passed, and the waste had nowhere left to hide. He called the movement the Time League, and for a few years it was genuinely everywhere. Tens of thousands of members across the country, in factories and army units, all carrying the same little time card and writing down their hours. They took it seriously to a degree that's almost funny now. Members wore small badges, and they went around hunting down what they called embezzlers of time, calling out officials and respected workers who wasted the hours everyone else was trying to save. But strip away the slogans and the badges and the Soviet machinery around it, and there's something underneath that has nothing to do with the 1920s, or Russia, or any 5-year plan. It's a plain fact about how a life actually disappears. And it's the reason you can look back on a whole year and feel like it happened to someone else. Think about how you'd answer if someone asked where your last week went. You couldn't. Not really. You'd say work and the usual and you'd wave at it. But the actual hours, laid out one by one? You have no idea. You know where you meant to be and roughly what you were supposed to be doing. But the real record, the one the card would show, is a blank. And here's the uncomfortable part Karakoyzentsev understood. You keep it blank on purpose. Not consciously, but some part of you would honestly rather not know exactly how the evening went, because knowing would ask something of you. That's the whole quiet trick of a wasted life. It needs you not to look, and the card just makes looking unavoidable. Karakoyzentsev didn't have any of the modern language for this, and he didn't need it. What he had was the observation that a person who writes down their hours starts, without anyone telling them to spend those hours differently. Not because the card nags at you. It's because you can't keep lying to a record you're holding in your own hand. You're not going to become a more disciplined person in the next 30 days. The League members didn't either. What you're going to do is stop flying blind through your own life and start keeping the one record that shows you where it's actually going. So the waste you've been carefully not seeing gets put right in front of you where you have to answer for it. Here's how you build it, and it costs you a pen. Step 1. Carry the card and write down your time as it passes, not at the end of the day. An index card, a note on your phone, the back of an envelope, whatever you'll actually keep on you. Through the day you log what you actually did and roughly how long it took. Not what you planned, what happened. Meant to start at 8, actually started at 9:40. Scrolling, 40 minutes. Good work, 2 hours. You're not judging any of it while you write it. Think of yourself as the court reporter, not the judge. The judging comes later. Right now you just get it down honestly, especially the parts you'd rather round off. This is the part people resist, and the resistance is the whole point. Writing scrolling, 40 minutes the moment it happens feels bad in a way that scrolling for 40 minutes never does. That small sting is the card doing its job. The 40 minutes was always happening. What's new is that now you have to watch yourself spend it, in ink, and watching is what starts to change it. Step 2. And this is the one Kuznetsov built the whole league around. At the end of the day you sit down and read the card back. And this is the step I warned you about at the start, the one where nearly everyone flinches. Reading back a day you already half know was a mess is genuinely uncomfortable, and the instinct is to skip it, to tell yourself you'll start properly tomorrow. That skip is the flinch. It's the exact move that keeps the year invisible, because the writing alone doesn't do much if you never make yourself look at what it says. So you sit down, 2 minutes, and you go over the hours you actually lived. And what you're looking for isn't productivity, it's the gap. The gap between the day you thought you had and the day the card says you had. Because they're never the same, and the size of that gap is the exact measure of how much of your life is slipping past you unseen. Watch what happens the first time you do this. You'll swear the day was full, that you barely stopped moving, and the card will show you 2, maybe 3 hours of anything you'd actually claim, sitting inside a day that felt completely packed. That's not a productivity problem. That's the discovery that you've been experiencing your life as fuller than it really is, and the difference between those two is the part that's quietly evaporating. Step 3. Under the card, every night, you'll write one honest line about that gap. Not a plan, not a resolution. Just the plain truth of what the record showed. I thought I read this evening. I looked at my phone for 2 hours and read for 10 minutes. The morning I keep saying is precious. I spent half asleep and irritated. You're building a record across the 30 days, and it does something a single bad night never can. It stops you from telling yourself the comfortable version, because the card sitting right there says otherwise. And here's the part that surprises people, usually around the end of the first week. The card stops being about catching yourself, and starts being about something quieter. You begin, on your own, to protect the hours you'd be proud to write down. Not because you're forcing it. It's because there's a small, real satisfaction in a card that shows an evening you actually lived, and a small, real discomfort in one that shows an evening that vanished, and you start moving toward the first and away from the second, without ever really deciding to. The pull you've been missing was never more motivation. It was just seeing the thing clearly, because that's what Kuznetsov understood that no amount of willpower gets at. You don't waste your life because you're lazy or broken. You waste it because it's genuinely, structurally easy not to notice it going. The days blur, the weeks stack up. And nothing along the way is ever loud enough to make you stop. The card is the thing that makes it loud. It takes the quietest kind of loss there is, the kind you can't feel, and turns it into 30 small records you can't argue with. And when a day is bad, and there will be plenty of them, you write it down bad. Don't clean it up, and don't skip the card because you're ashamed of what's on it. The ashamed nights are the ones with the most in them. A day you'd rather not record is a day that has something to tell you, and the whole value of this is that after 30 of them you're holding a true map of where your life actually goes, instead of the flattering guess you've been living inside. If the harder, quieter version of this appeals to you, the version that's less about feeling motivated and more about building the structure that makes motivation unnecessary, I put the full system into a short book called The Soviet Habits Handbook. The link's in the description. Buy it or don't, the method in this video works on its own, tomorrow, for the price of a card and a pen. So that's what the League found underneath the slogans. Those people didn't reclaim their time because they suddenly had more willpower than the rest of us. They reclaimed it because they stopped letting the hours pass unseen, and it turns out that seeing them clearly is most of the fight. Your life is going by right now at exactly the speed you can't feel. That's the only reason it feels like it's barely going by at all. The card doesn't ask you to work harder or want it more. It just asks you to look, honestly, for 30 days, at where the time is actually going. Carry the card tomorrow. Read it back tomorrow night. Then see if you still can't say where your life is going.